people are drowning in debt.
I know one thing that when it comes to business is money and managing it.
The question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to look rich or do I want to be rich?
How did your mindset be able to like stay consistent with I have to keep going, I have to keep going?
Failure really isn't an option. Like when I look back, like I never thought it was like, what's gonna happen if I fail?
Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Lyric and you're probably wondering who I am. Well, I'm the girl that normally sits behind the camera. I am the producer, but today we're doing stuff a little bit different. We are sitting down with the person who started from the bottom, rose his way from the top, a father of two, entrepreneur of one. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Nick Schneider.
She lives behind the camera? What are we doing? Look at you, keep it up. We're in my casa today, which is exciting, so
Thank
welcome
you for
all of
letting
you.
us crash.
Absolutely.
It's good to have you on the show. You're normally sitting in my seat.
I know, right? I'm excited.
All right, so let's jump right into it. So I know a little bit about you. I know you didn't start off as an attorney. So where'd you start off from?
Who does start off as an attorney, man? So I was born in Panama City, Florida. I was the second born son. And eventually my younger brother Zach was born, so it was 3 boys. And I'm an Army brat in a way. I was born into the Salvation Army. And so we kind of traveled all around the United States setting up churches, and I was falling asleep on thrift store couches and setting up homeless shelters. When I say that, people are like, you lived in a homeless shelter?
Wow.
No, we set up homeless shelters. I wasn't that far. Times were tough, not that tough. But I really loved it. It was a really cool way to grow up and to see how you could help people. And it kind of inspired me very early on to try to make a difference for people. So eventually I moved to Georgia. It was weird. In Oklahoma, I was in middle school and I got moved back to elementary school. But yeah, I've been in Georgia since 6th grade. So.
Okay, so with him being from Georgia since the 6th grade, you've pretty much made a name for yourself right now. They call him Schneider the Fighter. If you all don't know, he owns a law firm out here called Nick Schneider Law Firm. So let's get into it. How did you begin with Nick Schneider Law Firm? What gave you this Schneider the Fighter fight? Like, what is your why?
So I worked in another law firm right out of law school, graduated top of my class. And I hit like every financial crisis possible. 2008, I got the typical story of just go to college, or what do I study? I don't know. Where do I go? I don't know. How do I pay for it? I don't know. And so I graduated 2008, and if people don't know, that's when the financial crisis happened and everything collapsed. The houses prices collapsed. I just bought my first house, hilarious. And so I was like, okay, I was 19. And so I was like, well, I gotta figure this out, but there were no jobs, no one was hiring. I was like, well, I guess the traditional advice doesn't work. And so I decided to go to law school. And you don't have to always know what you were doing, guys. And so people, I was born, I knew I was gonna be a lawyer since I was 3. That's not my story at all. But I knew I was pretty smart, and I knew that I was, able to accomplish a lot, and I wanted to do something special. So I did what a lot of people did, and I went back to school. And so, but I did law school in 2.5 years. And I graduated top of my class, and I got in and out. I went to law school to be a lawyer, not to go to law school. And so I started working for a firm. It was off MLK Drive, across from a graveyard.
Oh wow!
And it was a rough spot. But I wanted to learn PI, and so I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And I worked there for 4 years. I learned the ropes. I learned everything from start to finish. But we were never trying any jury trials. That kind of drove me crazy. I worked really hard to set up cases, and I was ready to. I didn't think the offers were fair from insurance companies. In fact, I knew they weren't. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to do it myself. And so I got a good result on a trucking case, and I took that money. My son was 3 months old, and I said, let's go. And so I went knocking on doors to lawyers and saying, please send me your bad cases, send me your disputed liability cases. I'll drive out into middle of nowhere, Georgia, and try a disputed liability case. And if I can make $600, that'll feed my kid for a little while. So that's where the fighter spirit started. And that's why we focus on litigation and getting high value.
I love that. So let's talk about your journey, like getting to where you're at right now. I know you said you had a bunch of trial and error, and I wanted to give the viewers a little bit of a take on that. How did your mindset be able to like stay consistent with I have to keep going, I have to keep going? I know you have children involved, but there could still be something else that's driving you. What was else that drive?
Something I've learned a lot in Innovators and Litigators is that a lot of people at a certain phase, especially when they're self-made, failure really isn't an option. Like when I look back, like I never thought it was like, what's going to happen if I fail? I remember thinking, okay, well, if it doesn't work out, I can always work for another lawyer. I mean, there's that aspect to it. But there was never really a backup plan or it was just, if it's not working, try something else. If you're not getting a result, work harder or learn something or develop this or, follow people that actually are doing what you want to accomplish. You get a lot of advice, hear everything from all these different people chirping in your ear, but a lot of those will be opposites. And so who do you listen to? And so typically you want to listen to the people you trust, but overall, listen to people who've actually done the thing you want to do. And stop listening to advice from people that are trying to sell you a course or just don't want to see you succeed. And so you get to a certain level that I'm experiencing where I don't know if people are getting in their feelings or whatever's happening, but you'll get advice that necessarily might not actually be for the best of you. But if somebody's going to tell you how to grow a law firm, they best damn sure have built a law firm before I'm going to listen to what they have to say. But it can also be really narrow too. So if somebody's really good at building a social media, then you can work with them on that aspect. They don't have to know how to grow a law firm and things like that. So, but be very careful who you get advice from because it'll often be counter to everything you believe. But also just take really good care of people. That was something that drove me crazy about working at prior personal injury firms was everybody was very transactional. Everyone wanted to, what do you do for me? If you give me a case, I'll give you a case. And I try really hard to avoid those types of relationships because what happens when you run out of something to give someone? The second I feel like I'm being bought or traded, I disengage on that real quick.
So with you putting all that into one pot, I know one thing that when it comes to business is money and managing it. So how do you go about managing it from starting from the bottom and being where you are right now and still being able to keep that same mindset with, some people get to the top and they're ready to be flashy and look at me, look at me, look at me, but you seem like a humble guy and you just seem very well off. So what's some advice that you can give someone who could be climbing their way up to the top but to not lose focus?
People are drowning in debt. I'm gonna tell you point blank, okay? Get on Instagram for 5 seconds, I promise you. 95% of those people rented that Lambo or put that bag on credit, I promise you. So one of the things I was very concerned about, well, one, I went without. And so it's a lot easier to go without when you didn't. I mean, I had a virtual office, I had no staff. I literally started with nothing. And so when you do it all yourself, it's a lot easier to not do that. But it was actually a mistake I made. I should have hired somebody much quicker because I took such joy in licking every envelope and taking out the trash, but that was actually a horrific use of my time. And so hiring somebody at $20 an hour would have saved me, I would have been able to accomplish a lot more. So don't be super careful with your money, but chasing clout, chasing status, chasing fancy cars are the death of wealth, by the way. Never forget that. Buying a depreciating asset, I'm a finance nerd now, by the way, guys.
I love that.
Buying a depreciating asset on debt is the dumbest thing you can do if you actually want to become wealthy. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to look rich or do I want to be rich? And some of the wealthiest people I know dress very conservatively, aren't chasing the Joneses, but I knew very early on that I can do a lot with less, and it didn't really matter what people thought I could accomplish or thought I could do based on what car I was driving. Once they saw the results, it didn't really matter what it looked like while I did it. So.
And when you say results, what are some of your favorite results you've gotten as being an attorney, and what drove you to pushing yourself to getting those results?
So we've been very fortunate, and juries have done some really hard work for us, but we've actually accomplished 3 multi-million-dollar verdicts, 2 verdicts, 1 settlement this year. And we were able to collect in just shy over 6 months, we were able to collect more, or we were awarded more for our clients in those 6 months in like 5 days than we were in the first 5 years of the firm.
Wow. So
that's really exciting. So the big numbers are great. When you have an offer on the table, it's $100,000, $200,000, and you go and get, and this is real, $22 million from a jury. It's very vindicating to know that you really believed in your client, and you had 12 strangers who said, I don't believe these people's excuses, especially when the insurance company is offering 0. But there's also the alternative too. So big numbers are great, and that changes clients' lives. That's what really matters. We were able to obtain a very large settlement against a hospital in Georgia in 2023, I believe. And I can't tell you any more than that. It's confidential, sadly. But that changed my client's life. She went from living in a difficult situation in North Georgia. Now she has a custom home, and she's able to, her hands are injured, so it's hard for her to open doors and take care of herself. So the house is made custom for her, and she's able to take better care of her son. And that will always be a monument to the work that we do. And it's not just a number. We just got a multi-million-dollar result for a client that was in the crosswalk, and he just got ran over by somebody who wasn't paying attention, and he was in a coma for 3 months. And he wakes up, and they've given him tickets. And the initial report, there's no tickets and things like that. So magically, this very wealthy person that struck our client has now convinced the police to cite our client sitting in a crosswalk. So it's important to give power to the powerless, and that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We fund cases ourselves. We don't charge our clients interest. We move when we believe in these cases, and not a lot of attorneys can make that claim. And so we want to change lives. But also, sometimes just the fight is such an honor. My first jury trial I ever got 0 on. The offer was 0, so it's not like the client had walked away from any money. But I was not happy with it. The cop didn't do a great job on the stand, and I was really beating myself up over it. And I remember my client going, "You did such a good job." She's like, "You gave me my day in court, and I'll never forget that." And I was like, wow, like even in a loss, if you're willing to fight and do what's right, people remember that. And she referred like 3-4 people after that too. So I used to be very proud to say that I never lost a trial. Now the greats that I speak to talk about their losses and what they learned. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want an attorney who's never lost a trial, because that means they've never tried. The best trial lawyers I know in this country, people have gotten literal billion-dollar results, lose a trial because they actually tried.
Wow. I love that. So it seems to me like you're very much like a people's person.
Now I might be.
Now you are?
It used to be.
So tell me a little bit more about yourself, Nick. So we know that you're an attorney, we know that you're a dad, but who's Nick? Like, what makes Nick Schneider Nick Schneider? Like, what's your day-to-day? What do you do for fun? Like, what's something that drives you? I know you've been working so hard since you were a wee bit child, but I mean, what now is Nick Schneider? I mean, guys, you don't know this, but Nick's birthday is coming up, so he's getting ready to be 40. So that is a monumental time. So going into your 40s, what does this look like now?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I thought I'd be more scared about that, or it would be an intimidating moment for me, but it's really exciting to be in my profession. I'm kind of a kid in it. Mm-hmm. So for me to be at this level, it's really exciting to be at a young age, relative, for a law firm owner, a founder. But I wasn't always a people person at all. In fact, my mom was like really scared. I was like quiet, and I would like sit in my room and move, like, line up my Matchbox cars, and she's like, "You're never gonna have any friends."
No.
It's true. She was really worried about that. But it wasn't until I started my own firm that I was like, "You got to break out of that shell, man." Like, mm-hmm. That was the biggest thing I was worried about. I was like, "How am I ever gonna get any clients?" I knew I was a pretty good lawyer, but you have to adapt and change, for the life that you want. And so I try to tell people all the time, like, embrace discomfort, because if you're comfortable, you're not developing, you're not changing. And I'm uncomfortable all the time in what I do. So who I am now is different than who I was 10 years ago. It's different from who I'll be in 3 years. So, but overall, most of my time is spent working. I spend a ton of time working, and I always make time for my kids. I have a 9-year-old son, Josh. Hi, Josh. He loves when I mention him. I always show him the clips. So, and then Carson's my daughter. She's 5, and they're my world. I tell them all the time I'd burn it all to the ground for them, but hopefully I'll never have to. But I never thought I'd love being a dad this much. I love playing video games with my son. I love doing art with my daughter. We have a pool down here. We'll show it to you later. So it's nice to get out and get some exercise. I actually like to work out a lot now. Getting there.
Summertime.
Yeah, but just building connections. I like to travel a lot too. Travel's so essential to what I do. It's a really good way to get away and relax and unwind, even though I'm always working. But
so you think that's something you can work on, is learning like a balance with not always having to be on work mode when you do go on vacation? Do you think that's something that's like healthy, or you just think you're like, how do you feel about that?
It doesn't bother me.
It doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I used to tell people I was with, they would complain like, "You're on the phone, or you're doing this or whatever," but I'm like, would you rather me be at my desk? Like the fact that I'm on a beach, or I'm at a restaurant or wherever cool place I am on a yacht, why are you complaining that I'm on the phone? Like I could have been glued to my desk, but that would make you happy. So that's my perspective, is if the way that I've crafted my life is conducive to that, and if it means I take a 20-minute phone call to afford myself this life and then take care of my team, then I'm okay with that. Now that might change when I'm 60 and I've had a heart attack, like different conversation. But right now I'm relatively young for a lawyer, and I've got the energy, I've got the time, and I enjoy it. And I think that's the biggest difference, is to stop chasing things that you hate doing. You can develop enjoyment. I've definitely developed enjoyment for law more. So just because you don't initially love something doesn't mean you won't ever love it. But the reason we're running circles around certain people is that they show up every day and they're like, oh, they don't want to be there. Yeah. And I love what I do. And it's exciting for me to empower our clients and to spit in the face of multi-billion-dollar corporations. It's amazing. And most lawyers represent the government or big business, and we're able to flip the script on them and say, you know what, I believe in my client, I believe that this is an injustice, and I'll put my own money down and my own work to make that happen. So
I love that. So are you big on social media?
I try to be.
You do?
She helps me a lot. So.
So what are some things that you like doing on social media? Because I do want to like tap into the social media like part. Do you think people get a real sense of your personality, or do you think like maybe you can reach out a little bit more? Are you a TikTok, or are you Instagram, or do you do the dances?
I love
Maybe we
TikTok.
can get Nick to do a dance. I don't know, guys. Maybe.
I love TikTok. I think it's really interesting. I didn't used to. I know back in 2020, I was like, this is a kid's app. Like, this is for children. And I think you have to develop a certain persona. I mean, if I find interesting branding that people will talk about, like certain parts of their life. I'm like, I want to present a certain type of person. I want you to think I'm professional. I think Nick's going to do a good job. He cares about his stuff. So, I don't want to be drunk at my pool. I mean, like, what's up, guys? You don't want to hire that guy. But I am a real person, and I try to exert personality. There's videos of me dancing at our parties and things like that. So.
That mean 1-2 step.
Right. So, I think it's important to develop some persona. I mean, I present a certain way when I'm in the office versus where I am. So, this is mostly me. This isn't like a fake guy, but, you want to inspire certain confidence that when the times come and I'm going to bring the hammer down on, State Farm, he's going to be prepared, and he's not going to be, drinking a martini and walking in and tripping over himself. So,
I love that. Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you, and really just for you to give the audience. So what are some 3 things from a millionaire mindset like you that you could give to like people in my generation or even people in yours, so that way they can either have that fight, that Schneider fight, to keep going?
So I don't remember the exact saying, but I love this saying. It says there's basically 2 hard paths that you have to pick. One is discipline. One is showing up every day, learning a craft. I have a picture of my study table in law school. It's just like this depressing, just like $3 notebook laid out in the library, and I'd been there for 9 hours, but it's like burned into my skull now. Or it's mediocrity. It's doing the bare minimum. It's barely surviving. It's never developing anything, and it's kind of just surviving on this, by the seat of your pants. You got to pick your heart. And so, what do you want? It's really hard. I mean, I spent my whole 20s in school, studying, learning, doing stuff I didn't want to do. I hated law school. I hated it. It's because I took it seriously and I worked really hard at it. And I got my butt kicked. The first year I thought I was terrible at this. And so that's growth, though. Like remembering that like you're shaping yourself into a craft that you're better than everyone else is. And so that's step 1 is embracing, the work. And being miserable for those few years, because then you can hopefully make 10, 20 times what you're making now, and you can have a better lifestyle. So you can either choose discipline or you can choose mediocrity. They're both hard. What hard do you want? So that's kind of my first step. But, developing a skill is so important. People talk about reinvesting in themselves, but it's true. The easiest path for most people, and it could be anything, is you need to get better at 95% of people in your craft. That's how you create worth. That's how you make anyone give a crap. And so that could be social media, that could be video production, that could be swimming, that could pick something. But developing that makes value, and that's how you can develop something. And then kind of the final step is keep yourself out there. Develop connections. I can't tell you how many times it's kind of that butterfly effect that people talk about, is that you have no idea when that connection, that person you met, is going to change your life. So my best example of the butterfly effect in my life is I went to dinner with a law school buddy of mine, Carlos, and he was dating this girl, and I met her once. But I happen to mention what I do, so I tell people the first step is just tell people what you do. And never saw her again. They didn't work out. And like a year later, she happened to call me. She remembered my name. She's like, hey, my family was in a horrible trucking accident. Can you see them? Can you meet with them? I said, if they want to meet with me, I can't just show up. But that case ended up being the large result while I was working with another lawyer that let me start my law firm.
Wow.
And so if I'd never met that random woman, and I had turned down that dinner, she never would have remembered me, and I never would have called that family, and we never would have gotten millions of dollars, and I never would have had enough money to quit my job to start my own law firm. And so that singular moment, imagine if I had just been like, nah, I'll stay in that day. I don't want to meet your new girlfriend, who gives a crap. Changed my entire life. And so I can't tell you how many times I go to a happy hour, I go to some dinner, I do some event, I'm like, I just want to go to bed. But you just never know. And so embracing that discomfort, I've completely changed my personality because it was necessary to build the life that I wanted. And I love who I am now. And so it's not about forcing something, it's just about changing yourself to develop in a way that gives you the life that you want.
I love that. And how did you do that without getting in the way of yourself? Because I think a lot of times is like, people, we get in the way of like our own blessings, our own things. So how did you have that conversation with yourself to just not get in the way?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to be flawless, right? Like, I'm not doing it right, or I made this mistake, so I screwed up, it's over. It's not true. I'm sure I missed plenty of events. I'm sure I made that mistake many times. It was like, oh, no, I can't do it. I'm just too tired. So just because it worked out doesn't mean that I didn't miss certain blessings or I didn't make the right decision. I make tons of mistakes. But I think the difference is you're willing to make those mistakes. You're willing to take those lumps. You're willing to get back up again. But no, you're going to make mistakes, man. I make mistakes all the time. It scares me. We do such high level work now for our clients. We're in the Court of Appeals. We're arguing new law. And so it's scary that you make that mistake. But as long as you're working really hard and you're working with the information that you have, you're not moving too fast, you're not ignoring the facts that you have, you're likely going to make the right decision most of the time. You don't have to do it every time. And take care of people. There's been times where I've taken really good care of people and they've kind of, didn't appreciate that or in many ways betrayed me. And I refuse to let that shape who I am, as to say, well, I'm never going to do that again, or I'm going to treat everyone like dirt because that one person didn't appreciate it. You have to be true to yourself. And so don't worry about being flawless. It's a really good advice that I give people, because one of my favorite sayings is perfect is the enemy of great. And so many times you're sitting in a corner going, it's not perfect, it's not perfect, it's not perfect. Well, how many things did you not do because you were so afraid to make that 1% failing when you could have done 10 things really well, and one of them was what created the life you wanted?
I love that. Nick, thank you so much for both the conversation and for joining us. And remember, everyone, when you put in the work every day, it adds up to greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Schneider.
I'm honored. Thank you all so much. And remember, if you need a fighter, call Nick Schneider.
You can find us here right on YouTube, and also remember to follow our Instagram page. We drop episodes every third Monday of the month.